The Patton Report is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, you guys. Welcome back to the Patton Report, the show where we talk about music, movies, video games, and whatever else jumps out of the pop culture rabbit hole. I'm your host, Chris Patton, and tonight we're going tactical into the world of Metal Gear Solid, and the man who turned stealth into a philosophy, Hideo Kojima. But first, let's take the temperature of gaming right now, because October 2025 is bursting at the seams with some big releases. We have, obviously, right off the rip, something we talked about a little bit last week, which is Pokemon ZA coming out tomorrow, as I record this podcast, October 16th, which is the game I'm most looking forward to. It seems exciting. The gameplay seems a lot more like Pokemon Arceus as far as your battles go. There's alphas, so in-game big bad opponents that you'll get rewards out of. You still have the raid mechanics, obviously your traditional Pokemon battles as far as like gyms and everything else goes. But it seems exciting, and I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, gaming is kind of a weird, wonderful place right now. We're at this crossroad where billion-dollar realism lives right next door to tiny hand-drawn heartbreakers made by 5 people in a living room. I feel like everyone has a little bit of subscription fatigue. Folks are quietly drifting back to physical media without actually saying they're drifting back to physical media. This is good for places like GameStop. And while the industry is debating preservation as online-only experiences keep disappearing and AI-assisted tools are creeping into design, testing, and even actor performances, which is forcing hard conversations about authorship, labor, and, you know, what handmade actually means in games. And I guess, you know, the caveat to that, and probably one of the biggest news items, is if you're subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate, you're hearing this for the first time, check your subscription. If you don't want to pay the $30 for the Ultimate Pass, the one that crosses platforms and has the most games available, you may want to reduct that down to, there's a $14 subscription version that has a lot of content. You will lose out on some of the day one games, so just be aware of that. But it is something to keep in mind, because we're basically now being asked to buy, you know, half a video game. We'll say a video game $60. We'll go with the old Xbox 360 and Xbox One method every month without ever playing it, right? You're just giving them $30, which is seems absurd, you know, but that's where we're at. All of the subscriptions have definitely overshadowed cable at this at this point in juncture. Back in the day, people would look at cable bills and scoff as the idea of cutting the cord, moving to Netflix, moving to Hulu. And then live TV subscriptions started popping up, and then premium versions of live TV subscriptions started popping up. And I would debate that a lot of people are spending a lot more on subscriptions than they think they are without even knowing it. And that's where we're at, man. It's kind of a weird time to be alive. And, you know, I don't want to harp on that. I think that the idea of physical media coming back is Nintendo. The way that Nintendo has went about selling their games, unfortunately, I think will shift the industry even further. So you're going to get less and less physical media as far as video games are concerned. Yes, there are physical releases of Nintendo games being released, but a lot of them are, here's a disc and then there's a download for this game, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be alive forever. If you look at things like the Nintendo Store for 3DS, you know, Weavers, those things can disappear. So it's one of those. It's one of the things that really annoy me about streaming is when you buy a movie on Amazon, right, or a TV show on Amazon, you don't actually own it. You own the rights to stream it as long as it exists on a platform. So just be aware of that when you're purchasing something. It's not inevitable, and it's not something that you'll always own necessarily. It's the same thing. It's the reason I own like 6 copies of Super Mario Brothers 3, you know, across multiple platforms. Like, oh, well, I bought it on the Nintendo Store for Wii. And I bought it on 3DS, and it's free to play on Switch, so that's good. But I'm also paying a monthly subscription for Nintendo Online, so it's not really free. It's one of those things to keep in mind, and it's kind of a sad age to be. If you're a game collector, you're kind of seeing the tail end of it, which is going to increase everything else, right? Like as far as cost and where things are headed. But that's the route we seem to be going down. And sorry to start out on such a depressing note, but let's talk a little bit about EA. Let's make things better about EA being purchased recently, and kind of their big bet, which is Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 is EA's redemption arc. After Battlefield 2042 stumbled, EA has handed the steering wheel to Vince Zampella of Respawn and reorganized the franchise under a multi-studio banner. Shorthand for that is there's fewer gimmicks, more grit, tighter squads, destructive maps, and a tone closer to Bad Company, which is the game that kind of everybody is looking for as far as a Battlefield game goes. Basically, they're promising it's not as flashy for the sake of flash, and performance should be taking priority here. And they've kind of came out and said there's going to be no superhero powers, just warfare, clean and mean, straight war game. So they're going away from what Call of Duty is kind of doing now with tie-ins and game tie-ins, and the same thing with Fortnite, right? Like where you have members of Family Guy and King of the Hill all around and doing these big battle royales. It sounds like Battlefield's like we already were a battle royale to some extent, so we don't need to do all that. So the idea is keeping the tone more clear to what they were going for originally, and communicating that clearly, and then trying to get back some of the lapse fans from their gameplay. The problem is I think that a lot of people have moved on from Battlefield. I don't know if it's really hard to do a war game after you've played 100 war games. Like what can you do differently? And that's where Call of Duty's at with their story modes in Call of Duty. They've gotten kind of crazy to the extent like it's psyops. You're kind of half android. It's getting very Metal Gear Solid, but that's kind of the thing. It's like where do you go from there, right? Like, have you hit everything that you can tell in World War II or World War I, and how interesting can you make that? And obviously this is going to be a bit different, but I think that's part of the problem, and they have spent a ton of money producing this game. And they were recently just bought by what is it? I don't want to say this wrong. It's the same company that pays WrestleMania each year. It's a Saudi entertainment fund, and I'm not saying that lightly. I don't have the information pulled up in front of me, but basically it is a fund to stimulate entertainment within Saudi. They do this for the WrestleMania is also another one of these WWE kind of things, but they own EA now. So EA, which was a company that was in debt, gets bought up, and this is the biggest thing on their roadmap. So it's interesting to see what will happen with that, and what kind of changes will come to that game versus what the idea of the game was, because they were leaning away from cosmetics and bringing in individual characters and those kind of things, trying to bring it back. Like I read there, the idea of the game would be bringing it back to more like an older version of Bad Company, whereas EA's recent model has been, hey, we should sell some cosmetics, we should sell some packs. Do you like football? How about you open some packs? I don't want to front on it too hard, I haven't played it yet. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know that it'll get released on time. We will see. All of that is up in the air. Let's go into the release radar here a bit. Battlefield 6 is set to be released this month on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Steam. Not on Game Pass at launch. Likely available later on EA Play, which is another thing about the Game Pass. If you pay for the Game Pass Ultimate, you're technically getting EA Play, but EA Play is not releasing day one games. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. We also get Assassin's Creed Mirage, Valley of Memory. That's coming out with, that's a free DLC that will be available on, I believe, November 18th. I have November 18th here. I think it may be a little earlier depending on what platform you're on, but it will be PS5, PS4, Xbox Series 1, and obviously PC. And that's from Ubisoft and Epic. Guild Wars Vision of Eternity, October 28th, PC. This is a PC only release that has not transferred to console. I don't know that it lends itself great to console anyways. But yeah, the next game on the list is Power Wash Simulator, coming out on October 23rd. That's on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, PC, and day one on Game Pass and Cloud. This one I'm actually excited about. I love comfy, cozy simulator games, and this is one of the best. I really enjoyed Power Wash Simulator, the first one that came out. And it goes from you're doing all your power wash missions, washing these houses and cleaning cars and doing all that, and then it becomes, almost Animal Crossing as far as just decorating homes and doing that. It's a game that's easy to get addicted to. I'm excited to see what they've done to have a part 2, but it's a game that I'll probably dump 6 to 8 hours in easily. Once Upon a Katamari, sorry, not Once Upon a Time, but Once Upon a Katamari is coming out October 24th. That's on PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, and PC. I've never really played any of the Katamari games. I always thought they looked super neat looking at them, and I have friends that swear by them and think they're incredible games. I don't know. Never played it, but that's exciting if you're a Katamari fan. It should be on all platforms and available to everyone, which, as far as I know, the originals were, PlayStation only releases. It's been years since I even thought about Katamari. But yeah, that's cool. And then we kind of talked about this one a little bit last week, which is Ninja Gaiden 4, which is October 21st. PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and it's on PC. And then just some outliers there. We talked about Pokemon Legends EA. That's out. Little Nightmares 3 is coming out. Bloodlines 2 and The Outer Worlds 2, which we talked about on last week's episode, will all be available to you. The translation of all that being wallets are screaming, SSDs are crying for mercy, and your coffee budget just doubled. It's backlog season, kind of already drowning, maybe in a good way. Who knows? Let's get into a little bit of TV, what I've been watching, which is Monster, the Ed Gein story. This one's probably going to split a room as far as my review on it. Monster, the Ed Gein story isn't a documentary. It's dramatized. It's a stylized psychodrama built to haunt your peripheral vision. The Netflix version of Gein is cold and withdrawn. Laurie Metcalf's Augusta is a storm cloud you can't escape. And visually, it leans into sepia, rot, and winter gray. Thematically, it's obsessed with how Gein's crimes became the blueprint for American horror like Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, Pieces, pretty much anything that has a cannibal and or someone obsessed with his mother as far as horror films go. What works for me in the show is the mood, kind of the period details that they go into and the way the show frames the influences of those other films. What I don't like is the main character, which you're not supposed to like to some extent, but the way that Jax from Sons of Anarchy decided to take this voice, it is hard for me to get over, especially if you've heard any of the Ed Gein interviews. It's nothing like his voice. It's kind of becomes more of, let's feel bad for Ed Gein in the first couple of episodes, which I don't necessarily like, which is true. This is a man that was basically acquitted from his trials due to abuse and how his mind worked at the end of the day. He ended up being in a mental institution. I think he died in, I want to say like the 87 or 88, if I'm recalling. I don't have all this pulled up in front of me. I'm just talking from memory because it's a TV show. And, it's God, it's just like it feels like they could have done so much more. When you look at like Evan Peters' retale of the show that they did with for Ted Bundy, and how good that was done, and how well it worked on so many levels, this just kind of misses the mark. I think it looks really good. There's definitely some cool artistic cinematography and things of that nature, but it's not something I would be super stoked on watching. And I haven't finished it yet, so I'm on like episode 3. There's a lot of things that is kind of smearing fact and fiction. I think they made the scene with him and his brother a little too quick for what actually happened. So in real life, he convinced his brother to help him fight or start a field fire to burn out old crops to replant the new, scorch the earth so new things can grow. Then hit his brother, blunt force, killed him, and then he died of asphyxiation. And the only reason Geen wasn't accused of that crime is because no one believed that he was capable of it, that there is no way that he could have beat his more charismatic brother, tricked him into getting hit with a shovel or whatever he used, a blunt force object in general, and left him there to die. And in the movie, or in the show, not movie, but in the show, they kind of go into that a little bit. It's not as extreme, I don't want to say cool, but as extreme as they could have went. I think they could have done something more there, and then their relationship with the mother after that, I think, could have been a little more strained than it was. Also, they haven't really, from the episodes that I'm in now, they haven't really talked about Geen as a babysitter, which, by the way, Ed Gein was someone that would watch other people's kids and just hang out with them. He was really good with kids, probably because of his innocence, and yeah, it's a very strange tale. And, watching the first 3 episodes, you kind of dug back into some other Geen material, and it's always one of those ones that creeps you out. I guess that's perfect month of October stuff. But yeah, what I would say about the show, if you're looking for something new here from Geen, or, if you're someone that already kind of knows the backstory, I don't know it's going to give you any of that. If you're looking for a great show, I don't necessarily know that this is it either. There's other better things to watch. I would almost recommend, instead of doing this, watch the movies that he inspired. If you're just looking for something spooky in October, go watch Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs. Do that instead. It's a better use of your time. Watch Pieces. Pieces is really great. It's underrated. I think it is still on Shudder, whereas some of these others are on multiple streaming apps, so I'm not going to go through all of those. Quick detour for my fellow music nerds. Rush is coming back for a limited run. After Neil Peart's passing in 2020, it felt like the final chapter of this band has been written, right? Like that they were done. They called, I believe, what was it, R40 in 2015 was going to be their last tour, because they knew they had a limited time with Neil. But Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson are taking a careful, respectful step onto stage again with 50-something tour, and this coming year in 2026. On drums, they have Anika Niles, who is an incredible drummer, a precision monster with polyrhythms, and just an insane. If you're a music nerd, you want to hear a crazy drummer. She is a crazy drummer. The last tour, being in 2015, was a farewell because Neil didn't want to perform below his standards. It's kind of what I was getting at, is it seems like they kind of knew his health was declining. But now, with his family's blessing, the band is framing this as a celebration, something to be seen. Fewer dates, more meaning. Expect the songs to lean on parts of the catalog where reverence, not spectacle, carries kind of the moment. So expect it to be a lot of the hits. A lot of the hits. It's going to be really cool to see how they handle that when it comes from. It's probably not something I'm going to be able to go see. I have not seen any Atlanta tour dates, and I'm sure the tickets will be astronomical. I know they're doing several shows in New York, so if you're in the New York area, it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Rush with a different drummer. It'll be very, very good. I wouldn't think that they would do anything else. So I guess going from drum solos to codec calls, let's talk about some Metal Gear. Right, that's the big topic of today. As promised last week, we're talking about Metal Gear. We're going to talk about Metal Gear Solid. We're going to talk about Hideo Kojima and some of the crazy things that he's gotten into over his life. And by crazy things, I just mean weird development ideas. But we'll get into that. Metal Gear begins out on the birth of stealth, some might say. It began on the MSX2, later ported to the NES and various platforms since then. But Metal Gear begins with a constraint. The MSX2 couldn't push full screen of enemies and or smooth scrolling. Kojima's answer, being the mad genius that he is, wasn't to fake it, but to subvert the genre. You're not the Storm, you're the Shadow. Solid Snake, a rookie operative, parachutes into outer heaven to find missing Agent Grey Fox and destroy a project codenamed Metal Gear. The loop. You study guard routes, abuse line of sights, and only fight when you must. Items matter, rations are for healing, mines for choke points, silencers to keep your footprint small, radio calls, your lifeline. Do double-duty mechanics, tutorials, and world building. Every key card is both progress and paranoia. Did you miss a door? 5 screens back. Better check. Gotta go back. It's a interesting game. It's an interesting game in a time period in which you have Contra, right? Contra being a side-scroller in a similar vein of you're a war hero, let's go win the war. But a very different take on it. A very different idea and ideology of what would end up being, Metal Gear Solid versus Metal Gear 2, as some might say. But it's what a weird thing. So Outer Heaven is a lattice of screens and small interiors kind of stitched together by keycard puzzles. So essentially, as far as the gameplay goes, you're moving door to door using light pattern recognition, and you have some simple boss encounters. You have like a tank and a hind. You use the rocket launcher to beat those guys. The remote control missile to beat those. Don't waste those. Use it for that. What holds it together is the tone itself as far as the game goes. A constant hum of you being outnumbered, you against the world. And the one thing that it does probably better than a lot of other Nintendo games of the time or MSX2 games of the time is to teach you patience, because you're used to clicking on the right of the D-pad and running forward, right? Not saying it's the first. There's other games, obviously, but it is, as far as like a war game goes or a spy game goes, it is the first trying to kind of teach you, like, hey, Rambo's not going to run in here and shoot. Well, he probably would, depending on what Rambo you're watching. Think Rambo 1. We'll go with First Blood, right? You're not going to run in here and just take down every enemy. That seems ridiculous. So that's kind of the game. The twist of this game is your commanding officer, Big Boss, is the architect of Outer Heaven. The voice guiding you is the enemy you're undermining in real time. And Snake is basically surviving a timed escape, detonating the fortress, and symbolically burning the chain of command that lied to him. So it has a lot of that, the elements of the great 80s action films or the great 80s war action films like Rambo, where, they convinced him that everything he was doing in Vietnam was for the good. And very similar. And it gets a little crazier as we go along here with Metal Gear. But, so, players out here in America probably met a different Metal Gear altogether. The NES port of the game has completely rearranged maps, cut context from the game, so cut codec messages. And codec messages you will kind of see in some of my gameplay. The codec messages are text messages that are sent back and forth across, kind of a walkie-talkie type deal, giving you different updates and things you can try in the game. And they actually do work as a tutorial as well. depending on the situation in the game. But some of that is cut, and it even removes the Metal Gear confrontation instead of fighting Metal Gear itself, which Metal Gear is let's just say like it's a giant mech that shoots nukes. It's replaced with a supercomputer. The intention being with that and the redesign is stealth as a philosophy is kind of blurred, so the idea is like you don't really need a walking mech with a nuke on it to beat it, but that's kind of where they went with it. Now, the crazy thing about this game is that I absolutely love it. I loved it from the first time I played it. The problem is I was never very good at it. It is a very hard game. It is a game that you have to learn every inch of the maps, right? Like you need to know, okay, this is my route, this is my route, this is my route. I need to go get this key card that goes to this door on this map. I need to memorize this map. It's one of those that will have you, even when I was playing this in late middle school, early high school, on a piece of paper, just sketching out a map. And then as the internet became more available and you get guides, things of that nature, it becomes a lot more playable. Some of the controls are annoying, very limited, right? Like with what the controller options were back then, but annoying. I'm just giving you the facts. If you've never played Metal Gear on, the MSX2 or the NES, I'm just preparing you. It can be a very frustrating game, but if you stick with it, it can feel very rewarding when you beat it. It's a great one. It's one that I highly recommend. It launched the series that I absolutely love. Metal Gear Solid, by the way, is getting its own show. So I kind of lied on the last episode. We're not doing Metal Gear Solid. We're doing Metal Gear. But yeah, it's definitely worth a play if you've never picked it up before. It can be tough. Some might say as far as going back to it, it might be, if you're taking out remasters, right, it might be a more fun game than Metal Gear Solid just because there's a challenge there. Metal Gear Solid in itself is kind of a weird, almost a tech demo for PlayStation. While it is a great game and I love it and there's some crazy ideas there, it was also the game that was trying to push the system to show you what it could do. And that's why it was included on a lot of like Domino's demo discs back in this day and things like that. Well, Domino's or Pizza Hut, I can't remember which one did it, but it would be packaged together with like Final Fantasy VII on a demo disc. And there's a reason for that because it had some great cutscenes. And crazy enough, on Metal Gear Solid, the demo for that, you could play all the way up to the DARPA chief, which is putting you a quarter of the way through the game. So, but yeah, anyways, we're getting off topic here. Metal Gear Solid 2 for the MSX2, released in 1990, is kind of a blueprint for what these games would become. 3 years later, Kojima returns quietly, writes the instruction manual for modern stealth. Setting is in Zanzibar land, breakaway state, using a kidnapped scientist biofuel and a new Metal Gear to threaten global stability. Snake is dragged out of quiet retirement because, frankly, there's no one else who can do this. So, once again, you're almost getting a Rambo 2 motif here. As far as the mechanics that change in the game, guards can respond to sound. So your footsteps on metal will pull them across the screen. You can crawl and hide under desks, squeeze through vents. You kind of get a 9 square radius if you're looking at it as a block. That gives you a living mini-map of patrols. Wind affects gas, footprints. Footprints actually linger. Like when you're walking in the snow, they'll stay there, and that can alert guards. You can lure guards out with chocolate or drop porn mags, which will stick around throughout the entire series with the various things that you can do to linger guards. But the AI, they're really dumb in comparison to today's standards. But in 1990, look at it there. Like, what other games were doing this? What other AI would look at, like, see something on the ground and go, huh? Kojima had us. He had us at hello. The mission itself is to rescue Dr. Keo Marv. he's an oleox scientist, which is the biofuel or whatever they're creating, and you cross deserts and minefields, and once again you're swapping frequency codes to talk to different people to get you to different areas, and you actually use disguises to slip into different guarded sectors. Along the way you reconnect with Gustava Hefner, and things don't necessarily go so well for him, and you confront Gray Fox, who is now your enemy. The boss designs are set pieces, so it's a little different, and well, I guess in the first game that kind of set pieces as well, but and this is what makes Metal Gear Solid so great, is because the boss fights are so awesome. But this is why Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 kind of lose a little bit. Like, your final fight's not, as far as looking at the game, it doesn't play or look great, but it's a set-piece duel that forces you to leverage systems you've learned. So as you go through the game, you're kind of learning different aspects, not just getting bigger health bars, like, you know, in Legend of Zelda, for instance. You get more hearts, makes the in-fight easier, make sure you go through all the dungeons, etc. This game doesn't really do that. But late game, Snake destroys the new Metal Gear and faces Big Boss one more time. The final fight is very brutal, very symbolic. Soldier versus the Myth being Big Boss. He's been made to serve, ending with Snake's improvised firebomb and an escape through the ruins. So it really does channel the rest of where that franchise goes. Why the game actually matters: MG2 is the bridge. Everything people celebrate in Metal Gear Solid 1 is prototyped here. The Kodak banner between the characters, the multi-solution stealth puzzles, and the story that's kind of talking about the power, loyalty, and identity between a soldier and a commander. It's a tough game to get through as well. It's one that is worth your time. It's worth spending that additional time to play. That's kind of wrapping it up for us today. I don't have much more to go on. Next week will actually be Metal Gear Solid itself, released in 1998 on PS1, and we'll go into that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope everyone has a great week.